So welcome. Just wanted to, first of all, say thanks so much for joining us. I think it's awesome that Mohawk Alumni are doing these webinars and sort of helping us navigate through everything, but also just a great place for us to connect and collaborate as alumni and communicate with one another. So just so you know who I am, my name is Linda Rourke, and I'm going to host today, just sort of keeping the conversation going. And I graduated from our media department, television broadcasting 3-year program way back in 1990. And I am now a senior development officer in academic partnerships with the Mohawk College Foundation. So it's full circle for me. I am back home at Mohawk College and love it. Even though it was a number of years ago that I graduated, I still feel like it was just yesterday. And so on our panel today, we've got George Georgopoulos, who's our health and safety consultant at Mohawk College and really good at it. George came to my workspace and helped me with my ergonomics. So we'll get some great insight from George. And we also have Natalie Fisher, who's a graduate from 2015 and 2017 and is the assistant manager for our student services at Mohawk Student Association. So welcome to both of you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
And I'll also just behind the scenes, it's always nice to acknowledge, my screens keep shutting off here, I don't know why, but we've got our Zoom operator who is Lynn Matisse, and she's now our alumni coordinator at Mohawk College. And she's awesome. If you haven't had a chance to connect with her, I suggest that you do that once this is all done with. So let's get right to talking about this. And I mean, if there's any background information about yourself, George or Natalie, please start off with that. Let me open that to you right now. If you want to add anything about yourselves, George, we'll start with you, that people should know a little bit about you. Let's do that, and then we can get into the conversation.
Alrighty, I've been at Mohawk for about 18 months now, but prior to that, I spent 6 years at Sheridan, so I'm somewhat familiar with the post-secondary educational sector. But before that, spent a lot of time in a recycling facility as a health and safety person and transportation side with Tim Hortons and a school busing company called Stock. So had a varied experience in health and safety for about the last 20 years. Ergonomics is something that's come and gone within my portfolio, but it's certainly in the college sector. It's probably our leading cause of incidents. A lot of folks doing a lot of work, mainly on computers nowadays. The phone doesn't ring so much. There's not so many papers to file anymore to change your positioning and your posture. So that's certainly top of mind for me.
Yeah, I mean, oh boy, that's a big one. I can't wait to talk about this. I don't even have a proper home office space, let alone a chair to sit on. So Natalie, how about you? You wanted to add to your background?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just like Linda. I'm a proud Mohawk alum. I started my journey at Mohawk in 2013. I did the health, wellness, and fitness program, graduated in 2015, and then I came back to do the occupation and physiotherapy assistant program. I graduated in 2017. I then worked as a student throughout my time at Mohawk. So I've networked my way around, and I ended up at the MSA, and I've been there for 3 years now. So I've done a full circle as well. I love the college, I love the community, so I'm glad to be here to give some insight on what I've done with my team from working from remotely.
Perfect. Well, it's great to have you both here, and of course another redhead, so yeah.
That's right.
So let's talk, navigating this remote workplace, which has been crazy for some, because a lot of people don't even have a space for a home office. So they're working at dining room tables, kitchen tables, islands. So we don't have a normal workspace environment. And as you mentioned there, George, not really the same opportunities to get up and move around. So let's talk about some of the things that we really do need to consider when we're setting up or maintaining that effective workspace in our home. And George, let's start with you.
I'll mostly speak from an ergonomic perspective, but there's some good information out there around both from a psychological well-being point of view and an ergonomic point of view, and how to set aside a space that's yours and only yours, and to work from that space, make sure it's in a brightly lit area, and that you're not disturbed, things like that. So there's that physical where you set up your space. But from an ergonomic point of view, if you can use an office chair, it's helpful. It's good if you do have counter height options, like at the kitchen, so that you can go from place to place if you're using a laptop. but mainly there'll be some, I'll get into it in a bit, but mainly there's some ergonomic things you should consider while you're probably in a less than ideal working circumstance, especially probably far different than when you're at the office normally. So I can get into those now or get into those later, depending on where you want to go next.
Well, Natalie, do you have anything to add on sort of that, like the general workspace, and then George can dive a little deeper into it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, coming home so quickly once the pandemic was announced, I didn't have an ideal workspace. I was working at a cupboard, so I didn't even have something that my feet could go under. But I did have good lighting. I had natural lighting. It was quiet, so I was able to get work done efficiently. But as the pandemic was longer, I was able to get back into college to grab some more proper equipment for me to be working efficiently and ergonomically.
Yeah, and the circumstances are different for different folks. Linda, a lot of folks are at home with children or their significant other and pets and things like that. So there's, you know, so you try to make it as much office as possible. I know for me, I get up and get dressed like I was going into the office to help develop that routine. I try not to wear a sweat top and a t-shirt and shorts as I'm having business conversations, just to get me in the right headspace to keep everything professional and keep the habits up that you had while you were going to the office. So those things are important. In terms of for folks that are, you know, doing some homeschooling along with their work because their kids are at home, there really needs to be conversations with your manager around that kind of issue that's happening, and, you know, talk about things like flexible timing to, you know, get tasks and things accomplished. So maybe in the middle of the day while the kids have some attention, you do your homeschooling, and then you can extend your workday, you know, a bit past 4 or 5 as an accommodation. So those kinds of things help to really, you want to really try to dedicate the time for work and dedicate the time for home and school and family and other things that are happening at home, because you're not going to avoid it. Just because you have your own office space in the corner doesn't mean there'll be interruptions from the children or the spouse or whatever the case may be. So
yeah, I like the comment, George, especially about having that flexibility in your workday. I mean, I think many of us are seeing people walk behind kids, you know, still in their pajamas, whatever might be happening around you as you're conducting your work. And if you happen to be on a call, you know, there's only so much you can control and do with that. So I think that's a really good point, and just relax with it. Let your coworkers or whoever you're meeting with understand your situation as well. I think that's really important. And keeping that routine. I love the fact that you brought up that you get dressed for work. I think that really helps and plays into the mental well-being, to be honest, because there's so much research behind having that routine and just that sense of getting up and still preparing for your day, just as you would be if you were physically going into an office. So I appreciate those. And Natalie, do you have something you can add to that as well?
Yes, I'm glad George mentioned it. I'm quite the opposite, to be honest with everybody. I roll out of bed just in time to get to work. I wear my PJs, and so I might take that tip up, George, so I can get my mental well-being back in state, just because I don't think this is going to end anytime soon. So thank you for that.
I wouldn't feel bad. I get up an hour later now because I don't have to travel. So
yeah, no commute, everything, right? And Natalie, I love it. You're not alone. There's lots of people working in their pajamas, or, you know, they might have a dressier shirt on, but wearing pajama bottoms. So it's all good. But if you're starting to slump, I think it's really important to take a look at just building in that routine and getting yourself prepared, because it how we are mentally. I just muted myself by accident there. So let's go back a little bit, George, on the ergonomics and what are some of the things that we should be doing within our home to ensure that before we get into the physical side and things we should do there, but that we should do to help ourselves so that we're sitting right, that we've got a good working environment.
So it really, if you're experiencing discomfort now after being at home for a few months, there's really two main root causes for why you might be experiencing, you know, neck, back, arms, wrist discomfort. Assuming that most people are doing computer or informational type work, not so much, drawing or, gardening or whatever the case may be, is that you're either in a static posture for a long period of time, or you're in an awkward posture, a posture that's not, in quotations, normal for that body part. So tech neck is one of the big issues. And if people are working from home, they're likely on a laptop, which aren't intended to be used 8 hours a day to do your work. They're occasional use, while you're on the go, while you're mobile. And so the challenge is you're looking down, and your neck is not built to look down for extended periods of time. It's meant to be upright and things like that, in that positioning. So for some people, they can't avoid it. They don't have a second monitor. There's no HDMI connection where they can hook up to a TV or whatever the case may be. So what folks can influence is not so much the awkward posture, because that depends on the equipment that they have available, chairs, monitors, etc. But you can make a difference on the static piece. So what that means is if you're sitting still for long periods of time, you're engaging a muscle group, tendon, all those folks, all those body parts for prolonged periods of strain. They're holding up your arm or your hand or your head or your back or your body in a certain position for a long period of time. So that's fatiguing for your body. And so the best singular advice I can give if you're working at home and you have less than an ideal situation to work from is to take frequent breaks. And I'm talking 20 minutes. Set a timer for 20 minutes, do some work straight, take a break. And even if you're in the middle of a conference call, that might mean for a minute you stand up and stretch while the conference call is going up, and then you just sit back down. And do something different, be in a different position. Perhaps move your laptop to the kitchen counter so you're standing for then 8 minutes, then you can go back to sitting down. So the best thing you can do for yourself is to vary your positioning while you're working at home, because what you have available to you, the list is long as the rainbow. People have wooden chairs, people have soft chairs, people have a reclining couch. Some people don't have a reclining couch. People have a secondary monitor, external keyboard, and some don't. So the best thing you can do is to vary your posture in terms of a one silver bullet type answer to the folks that are out there. And that's because you can't influence potentially your seating. You might be in a wooden chair and that's all you have. You might not be able to get a monitor so that you can look up while you're typing, or an external keyboard or a mouse that you can utilize instead of this little pad that's in the front here that kills my fingers by the end of the day. So you have to move. And I would set a timer for every 20 minutes, go through a series of stretches, or find a different way to sit and get your work done than what you're doing in now. Go to the couch. Nobody's watching. Listen to that meeting while you're lying down on a yoga mat, stretching your lower back. Nobody's watching. It's not like I would do it at the office anyway, because I'm not shy about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But folks won't do that at the office, but man, no one's watching at home. Go ahead. Take the time and just stretch out on the floor while you're listening to a meeting, while you're doing some online training or whatever the case may be. Move is the best.
Yeah. Two really good points there. Move, switch it up, take frequent breaks, and just make sure you're moving your posture in different ways, right? It's so important. So Natalie, what can you add to that? Because I just think we could talk for ages on how important that is, because the number of people I have conversations with that aren't doing any of that and are really starting to feel and see the impact that's having on their bodies.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have a little dog that needs to go out and have attention. So I'm lucky to have him, that I get to go out and walk him and stretch my legs and do that sort of thing. For me, at the beginning of this, I didn't have a proper chair. So I was struggling that way. But once I got the proper chair, I've done the frequent frequently breaks and able to move that way. I'm near the kitchen, so I often get up and grab a snack or a drink. So that gets me up and moving as well. So I agree.
Yeah, there's a lot of people saying the snacking in the kitchen's not a good thing.
Yeah, the COVID-15.
Exactly. Yeah, that's for sure. So let's talk a little bit and go back about that staying productive, because I think this is a challenge for a lot of people because we're struggling with so many different things. We don't have those day-to-day interactions with our coworkers. We may be by ourselves in our homes. We don't have other people to talk to or to converse with. It's just a different schedule. Some of us aren't good at putting a schedule together if we don't have that structure. So just any tips and points either one of you would have on making the environment so that you can also stay productive, because that helps us mentally as well. We want to really feel like we're contributing and doing our job the best we possibly can.
Want to go first, Natalie?
Sure, yeah. So I've come to routine. So I'm very routine oriented. So I have my morning routine. I get up, I sign into my computer, I usually make myself a tea, and then I usually start with emails. So I monitor 3 emails. So I have 2 generic ones and then my personal one. So I usually go to the generic ones first because they're mostly student oriented, just to make sure that we get back to them in a timely manner. And then once I do that, I go back to my to-do list. So usually at the end of the day, I make a to-do list for the next day and I just kind of prioritize that. Now the MSA is prioritizing the new semester started this week. So we're doing an orientation next week. So prioritizing and making a to-do list is making me more efficient that way and productive within working from home.
For me, I would never choose to work from home if I had the choice. I am way too easily distracted. So the first few weeks for me were quite an adjustment. And that's when I started getting dressed, because something clicked and that helped with my productivity. Before that, the day would stretch. I might have accomplished 3 things, but in like 10 hours. It was ridiculous. And after a few weeks of that, I said, I don't have a clear demarcation of when I'm working and not working. I don't have a dedicated spot to where I'm working and not working. And it's too easy for me to make one of the 30 items on the home repair list. I wanted to take 10 minutes and fix that thing or build that piece or whatever the case may be. So I wouldn't choose it. So the thing that helped me was really getting back into routine, as Natalie was talking about. Iron the shirts the night before, things like that, and getting dressed, put socks on, put your dress socks on and get ready to go to work and then get in the headspace. I had to trick my brain in that I was working while I was at home. So that's what I had to do.
Yeah, even make your lunch the day before, like all the things that you used to do when you were at the office, right? I think that you're absolutely right. Keeping that routine, building a schedule is really important. And that helps our mental well-being and then getting up and having those breaks and moving the body as best we can, stretching, having a yoga mat. I'm a yoga teacher on the side as well. And so I can't tell you how incredible the stretching side of yoga is for our bodies, especially because of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. But let's just, touch before we go in to see about any questions people might have and or comments that they want to share. Let's talk about that feeling of isolation, right? I think that, there's your case, George, where you need that structure, you need the office to go into to be productive. But then there's also the need of the contact with other people to stay connected with your team. Do you have advice, either one of you or both, regarding how to kind of keep that work culture going from that home office so that you still feel connected and that you still feel productive and that you're not kind of in that lonely loss of not having that space to go to anymore because you have to stay at home?
Yeah, for sure. I'll start. When the pandemic started, I had about 4 staff that I was managing. So I had to do some research and find a platform online. So I found one. It was free. It's called Slack. It's a project management tool that I've used throughout this time from working from home. So I got all my staff signed up. This is how we signed in and out throughout the day for lunches. So we talked about work, obviously, but then it was a good time where we sent pictures of our dogs or our nephews and just things that we can relate that we typically would do in the office. Oh, this is what I did on the weekend. Just sharing personal stories that we would typically do as well. Also in Slack, well, in addition to Slack, I did coffee breaks. So twice a week I did coffee breaks through Zoom. So we typically grabbed a tea and a snack. And then we just had a half hour of not work time. We just chatted, caught up with each other. And the first time we did it, we all texted each other and said, this was amazing. We feel more motivated to work. It was just that sense of connection by seeing each other's faces. It wasn't just like a text. So that was super helpful for us. Slack is a great tool. We were able to share documents and our research that we've been doing. Other than email, it's kind of a different tool for that. And then the MSA, lastly, is doing some fun activities within the staff. So we're doing Jeopardy and Family Feud in the month of June. So just to keep that culture around like a family culture. So we're all really competitive at the MSA, so it's all coming out in us. So we're all excited to do that this month. So we've worked hard to keep that culture and maintaining connections with each other. So it's working well.
Yeah, great point. I like the addition there of the coffee break. I mean, you do that in the office, so do that with your coworkers through home, right? I think it's really important to maintain that and have your team meetings and just carry on as if you were all together within the office. George, how about you?
Is another thing I struggled with is the working from home extended. And struggle is probably too strong a word, but I'm one of those folks that gets energy from other people and interacting with other people. So not having that opportunity was, where's this kind of underlying uneasiness coming from? And it's that you've got no place to dissipate that energy or nowhere to kickstart that energy. So it just kind of finds different avenues to express itself. So for me, I don't have a team. I'm part of the human resources team. So I have to tip my hat to them. They created a social chat times 2 days a week. So people just drop in and it's not business related. It's just like you would have around the microwave oven in your kitchenette or the water cooler or the coffee maker. And so those have been fun to get together. And then our leadership is good in terms of regularly scheduled meetings for updates and connecting on business issues to keep people informed, so that people stay connected. You get the information. You're not wondering about things like layoffs. You know what the situation is and what's happening and where we are with the budgets and things like that. Things that can prey on your mind. So getting information and taking the steps to connect with people. And then aside from work, you have to take the opportunity to be creative and meet people for a coffee while you're walking, 6 feet apart. People have been cooking like crazy. So you just do drive-by drop-offs of goodies and have a conversation and things like that. So staying connected is helpful. There's a lot of resources out there. You'll probably get better information than what I can provide. And certainly we have them the resources in our own internal learning modules and LMS systems. So, yeah.
Great idea too, George, in connecting now that we've got, some ability to get out and still keep our social distance, but actually see people. If there's some key people that you need to connect with and want to actually see, I think it's encouraging to actually go out and do that, just keeping your hands clean and doing all the things we're supposed to do, and still maintaining that social distance, but allowing yourself some opportunity to see face to face those people that you've missed in the office space. And I also want to talk just as we wrap up, and if anyone has any comments or questions, please put it into the chat box, and we'll have a few minutes at the end to talk to you about that. But there's been a lot of talk, especially on LinkedIn lately, about being kind to yourself. while working from home, and not judging your productivity or the way that you're coping. And I just think that that's such a great message, because we all deal with things differently. We deal with this pandemic differently. Maybe it has affected, or you know someone who has either been sick or died from this. You know, you're working in a very unfamiliar space if you've never been the type of person to work from home. So you're trying to adjust with that. So I love that. Be kind to yourself. And we'll go back to what both George and Natalie had said, and that is really take the time for your body to move around, to change the positions so that you can take care of yourself both physically and mentally. So I'll wait and see if we get any questions or comments, and no problem if not. But they are appreciated if you want to share. And as we're waiting for something to come in, George and Natalie, are there any final thoughts or comments that you'd like to make to the group today that they can take away and maybe share with some others?
Yeah, I think I'll just reiterate what George said. I think the biggest thing is just to stay connected with your friends and family and coworkers. It's a quick text or phone call or drive-by that you can do. I mean, I met 2 of my friends from the college this past week, and it was such a great feeling to actually see their face and have that intimate connection. Even though we couldn't give each other big hugs, we were able to chat 6 feet apart and just be with each other, chat about personal life, talk about work. And just seeing each other was great. I told them that we should do it monthly. So staying connected with family, friends, coworkers is the best thing during this time.
I would offer that I can forward you some resources, Linda, around ergonomics that is probably easier to view in a video or to share as a PDF versus try to explain it over a webinar, so that can be made available to the group. I'll forward them after the meeting. But beating up yourself about productivity is an interesting one, because you have to, that's a hard one. If like I said, I had that issue where it took me 10 hours to do 3 things for a few days early on. And you got to, in terms of taking care of, you can still feel productive if you've put something into, there's the work bucket, but there's also, have I done anything for my body today around movement, stretching, yoga, walking, exercise? So did I plan to do something there? If you did, then that's a check mark in that box and you should feel good about it. And did I do something for my mind or emotional well-being as well? 10-minute meditation program or course, or did I just read a book for pleasure for about 20 minutes and then go back to my day? And give yourself a check mark for those kinds of things, because those are productive in a way you can check off, but you don't check off from your list of to-dos typically in a day.
Yeah, and those are things that actually make you more productive on the work side. When you're taking care of yourself mentally and physically, you're going to be better in your job. If you're not doing one, then the other will suffer, and you know, vice versa. Like, you still want to feel like you're contributing and doing the job that you need to do. I thank you both. Some great insight, really good conversations. So I think we're at the top of the hour. I don't see any comments in the chat box. But if you do at a later date, please send them on to alumni. Be happy to look and answer the questions. And as George mentions, there's a couple of good videos, so hopefully we can connect you to those as well. And just a reminder that this was recorded, so we'll send that off to you. And join us next Thursday. This is the second of a 5-part series. So next Thursday at 12:30 is sustainability in everyday life, something that we can really think about, and we're home a little more that maybe we can have the time for. So we'll have Mohawk grad Sustainability Food Systems Coordinator, Ashley Packer from the college, and she's going to talk about the simple ways to reduce our carbon footprint. So excellent. It'll be a good conversation. She's amazing. I'm looking forward to talking to her. You can go for more information about that or about alumni to mohawkcollege.ca/alumni, and look forward to hopefully having you register for next week's. And I'll just double check. Yet still nothing there. So we're all good. That's it. George, Natalie, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your time and to the Mohawk alumni that took their time out of their day as well to join us. Thank you. It's really great to connect here, even though it's in this beautiful virtual world. But I'm grateful for that because we can still come together as a community on all different levels and aspects because we have technology to support us now. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.